Tomorrow, Alolan Raichu comes to Pokemon Unite, so here is everything you need to know about our newest attacker before it hits Eos Island. Come along with me, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw! Alolan Raichu is an intermediate difficulty ranged special attacker that most similarly reminds me of Mewtwo Y and Cinderace. Sort of if Mewtwo Y and Cinderace had a baby, which would be weird looking. This Pokemon does start as Pikachu and evolves to Raichu at level 5. Evolving at level 5 means that one clear of the central area, aka the jungle, will let it hit its level 5, meaning that this could be a very good option for the central area. However, its early moves do have good secure, so this Pokemon can also be played in lane. As Pikachu, Alolan Raichu's passive ability is static. This is the same passive ability that the Pikachu has in the game currently. Static will paralyze nearby opposing Pokemon when Pikachu is damaged. When a Pokemon is paralyzed in Pokemon Unite, their move speed is decreased by 30% and their basic attack speed by 10%. It is possible that this is slightly changed for Alolan Raichu, but that is how Paralyze currently works for Pikachu. Alolan Raichu's passive, once it evolves, is Surge Surfer, which will allow it to move while it uses attacks, which is, yes, unbelievably good. Also, when you use a move or use your boosted attack, you'll sort of slide and dash around the battlefield. It's very cool. One interesting thing to note is you will actually slightly attack faster if you are not sliding around the battlefield. So if you would just like to burn something to the ground like an objective, you actually may want to stand still while you are auto attacking with Raichu. Alolan Raichu's boosted attacks are very interesting. As Pikachu, they're exactly the same as the Pikachu we have currently, where every third attack it will become boosted and it will paralyze your opponents. However, once you evolve to Alolan Raichu, your boosted attacks change in a dramatic way. There are multiple ways inside Alolan Raichu's kit to charge your boosted attacks. The easiest ways are hitting an opposing Pokemon with an attack or a move. Once your boosted attack gauge hits 4, you will then use your boosted attack that will chain damage to up to 5 enemies around the initial target. Yes, that's right, you can hit every single member of the opposing team, including an objective with a boosted attack. It is crazy powerful. We'll talk about Alolan Raichu's moves here in 1 second. Before, let's just quickly talk about what you will be doing as Pikachu before you hit level 5. Your first move is Thunder Shock, and it operates almost identically, possibly even identically to the one that Pikachu has. You deal damage to opponents in a decent burst, and you will paralyze them. Pikachu's second move, however, is not the amazingly overpowered Electro Web, even though I wish it was. It actually gets Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave is not a sure hit. It deals damage in a line in front of you, hitting your opponents with a actually decent amount of burst damage that will also paralyze your target. Of course, the point of Alolan Raichu aren't these first 2 moves. It's once you hit level 5 and evolve, that's when things start to get really exciting. Your first move selection choice at level 5 is between Stored Power and Electro Ball. Let's talk a little bit about Stored Power because I think you're going to be seeing a lot of it. Stored Power is a buff that you put onto Alolan Raichu that allow your next 6 auto attacks to deal additional damage. Also, once this increases to its plus version, you will lower Pokemon's special defense when you hit them with your auto attacks up to 3 times. Now, I mentioned Alolan Raichu's passive earlier that allows you to generate boosted attacks. Every time you are hitting with one of these stored power stars, it essentially counts as you hitting twice. Once for the auto attack and once for the stored power damage, giving you boosted attacks very quickly. And then that second move selection is Electro Ball, which is actually really interesting. It feels like Alolan Raichu has sort of 2 archetypes that it's going to be playing with. Almost a range sort of burst mage and then an auto attacker. So Electro Ball really plays into the mage version of Alolan Raichu. You throw out Electro Balls, which remain on the battlefield for a short time, and when an opposing Pokemon touches the Electro Ball, it deals damage to nearby opposing Pokemon in a small burst. You can have 2 uses of this move kept in reserve. The upgraded version of this, by the way, deals damage over time, which is pretty incredible. And Electro Ball combo's really interesting with your next 2 moves, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So very shortly after becoming Alolan Raichu at level 7, you have your second move selection, either between Thunderbolt or Psychic. Thunderbolt is a long-range damage move, basically an upgraded version of Thunder Wave that will hit your opponents and leave them paralyzed. It also has the ability where if it hits an Electro Ball, the ball will release its electricity and deal damage to nearby opponents. So you can sort of detonate these mines that you've placed around the battlefield. The upgraded version of this will actually root your targets in place and make them unable to move briefly, which is very powerful. I found this move is pretty interesting because as you use it, you will sort of dash around the battlefield, creating some opportunities to kite in and out of a fight. Your next move, Psychic, interestingly enough, combos with both of your other move sets in some exciting ways. Psychic is an area attack that you'll cast on your opponents. It feels a little bit like Psyduck's Psychic, where you will do some damage to them and you will slow them, but you will not pull them around the battlefield like Psyduck. Instead, you will deal additional damage with your basic attacks to Pokemon that have been hit by this move and are slowed. This move also combos with Electro Ball, where the electric orbs created by Electro Ball will be pulled to the center of this move's effect, creating a really interesting situation where you can sort of throw a Psychic on an opponent and have the Electro Balls sort of suck towards them and create a big explosion of damage. The upgrade of this move also will deal damage over time, so you'll have multiple damage over time moves inside of Alolan Raichu's kit, and I have to say, I absolutely love damage over time, whether it's for applying things like additional curse debuffs on your opponents, or just putting them in situations where they can't heal and get away from combat easily. Damage over time is always just a sneaky way to pick up annoying KOs. Now let's talk about your Unite move, Thunderstorm Aerial. This creates a big star-shaped area on the battlefield where your opponents will take damage. This move casts very quickly, and it will apply a slowing effect to your opponents, all the while dealing damage over time while they are still in the area of effect. Really powerful move, actually a very large radius, which I was really impressed by, and again, this is just going to set up a situation where you're dealing tons of damage to your opponents and slowing them, making it so it's really hard for them to get away from you as you chip them down or burst them down as a mage Alolan Raichu. This also combos very well with your basic attacks, because if you hit a Pokemon inside that zone with your basic, your attack immediately becomes a boosted attack, allowing the damage of your next one to chain to multiple enemies. If you were to hit them once again inside this zone, continually give you boosted attacks, which is very powerful. Let me talk to you about the 3 likely move combinations for Alolan Raichu. One is going to be Stored Power and Psychic. Stored Power and Psychic combo extremely well together, Stored Power giving you that buff for your auto attacks, and then Psychic allowing you to deal more damage to opposing Pokemon with your auto attacks if you hit them with this move. This seems like the most straightforward version of this kit. You'll do a ton of damage to your opponents, just auto attacking, moving around the battlefield, charging up your boosteds, dealing tons of damage to enemies that happen to be near each other. This is a super simple combination, and I'll talk about items here that could work for it in a little bit. The next combo is Electro Ball and Thunderbolt. You'll use Electro Ball to either deal damage directly by hitting them with Electro Ball, or you'll throw out your Electro Balls, and then if your opponents are foolish enough to come near you, you can be auto attacking and then throw your Thunder to deal crazy amounts of damage while rooting your opponents in place with the plus version of this move. The third combination is the sneakier Electro Ball Psychic. This will allow your basic attacks to deal additional damage to your opponents, and it will give you the ability to make some really fun plays with Electro Ball, because you will throw Psychic and have the Electro Balls and your opponent sort of get hit in the middle of this damage. There really wasn't anything in Alolan Raichu's kit that felt pretty underpowered on the public test server. I will say I think the easiest build to use will be Stored Power and Psychic, and it will probably have very good results for most people. However, we really don't know what state this will release like in the main game. I can just speculate on what the public test server felt like. There are going to be some really fun combinations with these moves, like this moment on the public test server where I baited the enemy Venusaur toward this bush, used Psychic to draw all the Electro Balls in and almost one-hit KO them. You'll also notice the auto attack damage with Psychic and Stored Power is incredibly strong, allowing you to rip through an objective like Rayquaza very fast. Also, make sure that you notice that when you are not moving around and using your auto attacks, you are going to be attacking faster because you're not taking that animation delay when Raichu does sort of dash around the battlefield. For items, it's going to be interesting because we're not going to know exactly what to run until we know the exact values of this Pokemon, but I can tell you from the public test server that the Muscle Band and Rapid Fire Scarf will increase your attack speed, and this very well could be a situation where you're playing this Pokemon with a build similar to Mewtwo Y, where you're running something like Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf, and either Slick Spoon or the new Drive Lens for this Pokemon. Your special attack does get up to about 750 at level 15, so it's probably reasonable to run something like a Drive Lens. However, we don't know exactly how that scaling will apply to your basic attacks. I also think a Curse Incense will be a very good item for this Pokemon. Always auto-attacking and dealing damage that will be applying Curse is really powerful. For boost emblems, you're going to want to run something like either 7 black, 6 green, giving you better cooldowns and more special attack, or possibly a 7 red build that would also work for something like Eldegoss or Alolan Ninetales. The question is whether or not this will be beneficial for your attack speed. I'll have an additional video once the Pokemon actually hits the game and we have better knowledge of these numbers. As far as battle items are concerned, I think X attack is going to be very powerful. Run things like X speed and eject button and you will do very, very well. I think Alolan Raichu is going to be an exciting addition to the roster, and I do believe it will be very powerful if it's anything like it was on the public test server. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I love you guys, and I'll see you all next time.